Zombie survival has always been a genre that fascinated me. Shows like The Walking Dead glorify the experience of what living through a zombie apocalypse would be like, and many games have came out trying to capture the true immersion of a zombie-ridden world. Open-world zombie games are a hard task to tackle, since it's not your average linear story-based game that throws the player in a path to follow. Not only do you have the hardships of an open-world sandbox, but you have to add enough elements to the game so the audience doesn't get bored after killing their 500th zombie. This can range from creative weapon combinations to unique methods of killing the infected, to creative base building mechanics. And with just how many zombie games there are on Steam, sometimes it's hard to differentiate the good ones from the not so good ones. One of these games that stands out, however, is
From the dusty mesa, her looming shadow grows, hidden in the branches of the poison creosote. She twines her spines up slowly towards the boiling sun, and when I touched her skin, my fingers ran with blood.
DayZ is the love child of Bohemia Interactive, who for the longest time have been known for making those war games you'd find at your local Goodwill. They specialize in mainly realism games, so take that as you will in a game from 2002. DayZ actually started out as a mod for the popular game Arma 2, basically just being the Arma 2 map, but with zombies in it. After its initial release, the servers started filling up with people wanting to play the mod, and soon enough, a bunch of iterations of the mod were created that evolved into its own community. One of the most popular mods being DayZ Epoch. Epoch is set in a future time after the Great Infection. Humanity has slowly started returning to the wasteland, indigenous survivors have begun to join together in small groups to rebuild society. Merchants have started popping up along the coastlines along with rogue bandits looking to prey on unsuspecting survivors. Epoch isn't a challenging survival mod compared to the standalone DayZ, but it gave everyone the same playing field when starting out, so the challenge became how to utilize those tools to dominate everyone else on the server. As of today, since the release of newer versions, not many servers are available that still run Epoch, but at its peak, Epoch revolutionized the concept of zombie survival by adding elements such as base building, side missions, and merchant trading. One of these side missions being downed helicopters that would spawn around the map carrying sometimes insane loot piles.
We happy?
Yeah, we happy.
Every player in the server would get the location marker, so it was a race to see who would get there first. One thing that the DayZ mod had that I wish they would have kept in Standalone was the intense music that would play. It just added so much to the gritty environment that constantly kept you on edge. Vehicles were in abundance in Epoch, focusing the player's attention on what to do rather than how to get there. The amount of activities you could do was honestly astounding to me when I was researching for this video. No, go! No, I can't! No, stop! I fucking nosedived right into the ground! Epoch gave the player something to do rather than solely surviving, which is why it stayed popular for as long as it did. It felt like a real-life zombie game and gave the players a lot of fun to experience. The community itself was big into role-playing, so you could be robbed by a group of bandits or kidnapped and ransomed back to your group, and it would actually be more enriching to experience and get fully immersed while playing. And something you may have noticed is that the footage that isn't archive footage severely lacks other players. This is because at the time of recording, there were only a few players in the servers I could find, and with how big of a map Chernarus is, the chances of finding anyone were little to none. DayZ Standalone would be released as early access in December 2013. Players loading in would see a massive graphic upgrade to the buildings and UI. One thing that would be very apparent is that a lot of what made DayZ popular in the first place would be removed. Working car spawns massively decreased, and elements from Epoch like AI traders and missions would be removed. Something that made the original DayZ what it was. DayZ Standalone would remain in the same state, only having the developers make small changes, until its initial release out of early access 5 years later. The 1.0 update was where DayZ really started to become something special. The game got a massive upgrade to the UI, which made it actually not horrendous to look at.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man?
The animations looked more fluid and natural, and they even added a climbing feature so players could finally scale over walls. But the biggest addition had to be the introduction of base building, which wasn't even accessible before 1.0. There was a mixed reaction among the player base on this update. A lot of players thought it didn't add as much as it should have for being so long in the alpha stage. But overall, I think this made DayZ more playable for the new players who haven't been playing since the early days back in Arma 2, and didn't have to experience many of the awful fucking physics of earlier DayZ. When I was recording footage for this video, the majority of the footage I recorded was me walking around. And I don't mean like half, I mean like 99% of DayZ consists of walking around from place to place. But this isn't necessarily a bad thing. DayZ, being the way it's designed, forces the player to focus more on the journey rather than the destination. DayZ has a huge map, many of the places being explored very little. There's some locations that take hours to get to. But with just how beautiful DayZ's environment looks, sometimes it's well worth traveling the scenic route to get to experience them. There are cars in the game, however the majority of them are in shambles, and in the current DayZ Standalone, finding a working car is almost impossible to find. And when you do manage to find one, they'll almost never have all the parts you need to start it, which forces you to either continue walking or spend your time trying to find all the necessary pieces to get it running. Which is not very likely, as the spawn rates for car parts are completely random, a far cry from the vast majority of cars available in earlier mods. Before the 1.0 update, getting into a car was pretty much a death sentence.
I'm dead. What the fuck?
In DayZ, if the car was bumped ever so slightly, it would usually cause the car to fling itself into the air. It was so bad that it would most likely result in players getting knocked out or killed due to the animation chucking the car right into you upon exiting it. Thankfully, since then, it's been fixed, at least on PC. I pray for the sorry individuals who have to play this on console. But at the time, it was infuriating, getting killed all the way up north by an unintentional bug. The way I would describe traveling in DayZ is more of an experience. When you spawn in on the shore and run into someone, you slowly build trust with one another and agree to travel together. That experience alone makes DayZ worth getting. You'll end up spending so much time with this random person that you just met that when one of you ends up dying, it's so much more impactful than you may realize. There have been many times when I've lost someone I'm traveling with, and a couple of days later I end up meeting back up with them and we start a new adventure. Or sometimes things don't happen the way you think they will, and that teammate that you thought you could trust ends up shooting you in the back of the head as soon as they gain your trust. Experiences like these are important when playing DayZ, because you pick up on specific movements and behaviors the more and more players you meet, and you may be able to figure out their motives before it's too late. Someone in that police station. I wouldn't go in there if I were you. I think I should kill him. I really want that shotgun. Oh, he's done, bro. He's down. Bro, I got him with the old fucking police station trick. Since the majority of people you're going to meet in DayZ will be on the shore, there's never a clear indication whether they want to kill or help you. After all, what do they have to lose? If you do manage to make it past the shore, you'll end up heading towards the north, into the wilderness. If you have the unfortunate circumstance of being alone up north, things get a lot more different. The environment doesn't change, but the overall tone of walking around from town to town makes you more and more paranoid that you're being watched or followed, especially when you see things like dead zombies strung around the towns or doors to buildings opened. You start raising your guard, and even the littlest sounds can make your skin crawl. So you start doing things like constantly checking behind you to see if you're being followed, or staying in buildings for long periods of times and checking outside to see if you can find anyone lurking around the walls. Every little creak in the floorboards has you convinced someone's waiting on the other side of that door, ready to shoot you down as soon as you open it. Versus when you're actually with someone and have the luxury of conversation and a reliable guard to watch your back. But when you're alone, it's just you, left with your thoughts fighting against you. One of my favorite aspects about DayZ is that it doesn't hold your hand while you're playing it. Like many other games, it takes time to learn the rules of the new environment you're thrown into. You spawn in with all the proper necessities to start your journey, this being a glow stick, a piece of fruit, and a bandage. The game doesn't give you any instructions on how to load your weapons or where to go first. Game knowledge is one of the biggest advantages you can have in a game like DayZ. Being able to know where you are without looking at a map or knowing what ammo fits in what gun is one of the many novelties that only playing DayZ more and more will give you. Food is a necessity in DayZ for gaining hunger or getting your health back. The more you run, the more your energy exhausts, the more your food and water will go down. If you don't have access to good food and water, there is alternatives such as drinking from a pond or eating raw or rotten food. And yes, you will survive, but without the proper procedures, it can lead to some dire consequences that pretty much guarantee your death. There are a variety of different illnesses plaguing the surface of Chernarus, and knowing what medicine cures what illnesses is probably one of the most important aspects to learn about DayZ. Your character can get sick in a variety of different ways. DayZ doesn't tell you what sickness you have, by the way. That's all up to you to decide. Sicknesses can cause blurred vision, which makes aiming your gun a total nightmare. Coughing can draw unwanted noise and even severely lower your stamina bar. However, even if you take the medicine and the little pill icon shows up, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's working. That's just an indication that you took medicine. So you could potentially be taking the wrong medicine and wasting hours of resources without realizing it. And this recently happened to me when I was recording footage for this video. At the time of recording, DayZ added the rags update, which made pretty much any piece of cloth that wasn't a bandage infected by default. The only way you can use this safely is by disinfecting it. Me, not knowing this at the time, was wondering why I was grunting and slowly losing my health. I tried every medicine I have in my inventory, but ended up dying from my lack of knowledge. I then looked it up to realize that I just needed alcohol tincture to cure the disease. An item up until now was pretty much never used to disinfect anything because all the rads used to come uninfected. So you can either learn the hard way like me, or just read the fucking patch notes. You can find medicine in hospitals and random houses strung throughout the map. It's not a guarantee, and sometimes you won't find the right medicine you need, so if you do happen to have a cough or in my case severe grunting, good luck. Another important aspect to learn about DayZ is the map. It took me a long time to learn the layout of the map, and I'm still not close to being an expert at it. I use iSurvive because the in-game map DayZ has is just fucking god-awful. I have a certain path that I take every spawn and know my way around the shore, but other than that, when it comes to going off path, I'm pretty much walking in the dark. DayZ takes place in Russia, with every sign in the game being in Russian. So unless you know Russian, being able to identify certain symbols and associating them with locations and landmarks is something you have to pick up while playing the game. Once you do learn the map, getting geared up becomes increasingly easier. Buildings will have everything you need, from food to smaller weapons to utilities like compasses and binoculars. Specific locations like military bases and police stations will have better items like better weapons, ammo, and warmer clothing. However, these areas are very popular, so the chances that you'll run into someone unfriendly are much higher than if you were just looting houses. This adds a risk factor to the game, which makes you decide whether you want to put the risk of confrontation for the chances of better loot. Sound is one of the key senses that DayZ focuses on, arguably more than sight. When playing isolated for long periods of time, your mind starts to play tricks on you, and sometimes your ears can be the only thing that differentiates what you see versus reality. That's a car.
Congratulations!
This usually happens more towards the north when you're all looted up, and the risk of another player is more threatening than the zombies. However, one thing that DayZ does extremely well at is still keeping the zombies as a big threat. No matter how much loot you have, zombies are still a big problem and add one more thing to have to worry about. Especially if you're in combat, they can literally be the thing that either saves you or kills you. Okay. Players by design have more sound cues than zombies, so the majority of the time, you'll end up hearing a player before you actually see them. Gunshots being one of the biggest indicators. Oh. Media has taught audiences that shooting a gun should be one of the last resorts and avoided whenever possible. This rule applies the same in DayZ, not only to the person hearing the shot, but the person who fired it themselves. Gunshots can attract zombies' locations from far distances, allowing them to attack in groups, making it way more difficult to stealthily move around without getting detected. Depending on how far of a distance you are, gunshots will actually change the pitch and sound as they move across the open fields and empty cities. A video by a creator named Wobo goes into much more detail than I ever will about just how realistic they made the sound designs of gunshots. I'll put a link to this video in the description if you want to check it out. Experienced players can use this to triangulate where the shot came from and even what gun the bullet was shot from. Zombies will run towards the shots, creating a clear path of where the shot came from. The zombies have audio cues when they spot or hear you, which will send them into a sprinting frenzy, flailing their arms and throwing themselves at you, doing whatever they can to find you and beat you to incapacitation. On their own, a zombie isn't too much of a threat, but it's when they're grouped up where they're at their most deadly. 3 or 4 zombies all attacking at once is enough for even the most prepared players to start to worry. Zombies and players purposely have similar sounding footsteps, so when you're not paying attention managing your inventory, you'll have to do a double take to make sure what you're hearing isn't another player trying to sneak up on you. Holy shit, that scared the fuck out of me. Oh my god. This, mixed in with the overall atmosphere of the empty towns, is very intimidating and can create fear just by use of sound design. The creators of DayZ added in their own sounds at random just to mess with the player. Hello? This can range from floorboard creaking in houses to branches shaking outside. Just little things to keep the player on edge and remind them that they may not be as safe as they think. Holy fuck, dude. You need to stop. Every player's actions has a specific noise to indicate if they're doing an action such as drinking or eating, which forces them into a timed animation. While in combat, if you're close enough, you can actually hear when players are loading bullets into guns or magazines. Sound is such an essential feature in DayZ, making it almost impossible to sneak up on someone if they're listening out. Even if you're crawling, the crunching leaves and grass around you signals your movement. One of the coolest features of DayZ are the intercom systems. In every major city, there are speakers linked to an intercom system that can be powered by a car battery. This strengthens your voice so you can be heard anywhere throughout the city. My guess is that this was intended to be able to communicate and locate players within the city, but people just ended up using it to blast music.
This is a special word from our sponsor.
There's also no way to mute it without also muting important sounds, so you could basically barricade yourself in the intercom room and continuously play whatever you wanted.
Turn the radio. Warning. Warning. This is an automated message.
DayZ also has walkie-talkies with different frequencies, so if you don't want to be a soy boy and use outside communications like Discord, you can still communicate with your friend from long distances. Combat in DayZ is treated as an event. When you encounter another player, the results on the winner rely on 40% skill and 60% strategy. A game like DayZ, with how god-awful the combat system can be, has some fights rely more on getting to the other person's head than whoever has the better weapon. This caters more towards fights up north, as fights on the shore usually don't have as much at stake. It just involves trading punches until whoever gets knocked out first. Everyone, whether they are experienced veteran or not, all go through the same process when engaging a player. They try to get into the other player's head and figure out where they would go. What the majority of players don't realize is that the other player is doing exactly what you're doing. Every fight, whether you're in a group or not, is a game plan. You can't just run into the field guns blazing and expect to win. Sometimes fights can last up to an hour, as both players are trying to find and wait for the other person to move out of position. When the fight's all said and done, you're still not safe. You don't want to go looting because you don't know if someone's watching that body, just waiting to reap on your hard-earned rewards. Sometimes fights can result in both parties losing, as the results of getting shot are brutal. This, as a result, makes both players think if going into a fight is going to be worth it. A mechanic that in and of itself is the most innovative parts of playing DayZ. It makes you think about risk and reward. However, the majority of people usually do end up going into combat because that's pretty much all you can do in a game like DayZ. The main focal point of the game is focus on combat, considering other than PvP, there's really no incentive to keeping your loot. You can start a base and build up your gun arsenal, but eventually a bigger clan is going to destroy it, which makes all the work that goes into initially making a base sometimes not even worth it at all. And something that people need to understand when playing a game like DayZ is that eventually you are going to die. It's pretty much a guarantee with all that's against you that you will end up back on the shore. But as grim as that sounds, a new adventure in DayZ should always be welcomed and encouraged. Because as fun as it is walking around looted up in DayZ, there's also fun just walking around the shore and interacting with people and getting into fights with little risk and reward.
Hello?
Hello.
Dean, please.
Do you mind taking off the gas mat? Okay. Now, this is a portion of the video where I'm going to do something that a lot of people don't like. I'm going to be criticizing the game's flaws. Yeah, I know. With how perfect a game DayZ is, I'm surely going to be struggling on finding something wrong with this game. No, I'm just kidding. There's actually a lot fucking wrong with this game. With any game being released, glitches and bugs are bound to happen. But the devs over in Bohemia Interactive are notorious for putting off repairs and letting bugs go on way longer than they need to. One of these being the horrendous collision between objects and players. When closing doors or walking into objects, sometimes the collision will mess up and the camera angle can't identify which side of the object you're on, forcing the player to have the perspective of being past the object instead of rubber banding you back. This is especially annoying when you're running away from something or trying to fight. Holy fuck. What the fuck? Hello, game? Hello? Hello? Hello, game? Hello? Hello? Oh my god, I'm fucking stuck. You can't effectively fight back until you've managed to unstuck yourself. I've died from this bug probably more times than I've been killed by a player with a sporter. The developers at least changed it so the zombies no longer kill you, instead they just knock you out. But this has been a common problem that's been in the game for years, and it boggles my mind why the developers haven't even begun to fix this yet. This point leads me to my next issue. The combat system. Because holy shit is it god-awful. Since the bullet damage you sustain in this game is so unforgiving, most fights can be ended before they even begin. Oh shit. Oh. I literally got fucking baited. This wouldn't be much of a problem if the majority of the fights in DayZ didn't often result in this exact same way. The gun damage in this game has always been a big problem since the first release of DayZ Standalone, but unfortunately it's not as easy of a problem to fix. You can't just make guns do less damage because that wouldn't be realistic and fit the style of DayZ, but at the same time, why is it that when I get shot with a BK from mid-range, my entire character's immune system suddenly shuts down and half the blood in my body proceeds to evaporate? One bullet. Wonderful. The melee system they incorporated into the game is beyond flawed and really frustrating when you're on the other end of it.
I can't drop the gun. I can't fucking do. I can't.
Because nobody wants to be stun locked to death by a fresh spawn when you clearly have the upper hand. And the combat system, when it does work right, is just flat out boring. The only attack you can do is a basic attack and a charge attack, which after the 50th zombie gets really repetitive and mundane. It would actually be really cool if you got different basic attacks and charge attacks with certain melee weapons. Or if you snuck up on a zombie, you could do a sneak attack that had an animation that killed it instantly. Okay, so apparently I'm a fucking idiot, and DayZ actually added this exact thing in the 1.17 update. So yeah. But in my defense, this is the only animation you can do, so if they add more, That'd be really cool. Just pretty much anything other than spamming mouse 1 until it dies. This also leads me to one of the main criticisms of DayZ that a lot of people bring up, which is the fact that the new iteration of DayZ doesn't really add anything and actually takes away from previous expansions such as Epoch. I will agree that at times this game does feel like a walking and looting simulator, and I can understand why to some people this may seem like a really boring concept. However, there are outside expansions like DayZ SA that allow you to join community-made DayZ servers that offer experiences more catered to those who prefer PvP or base building while still keeping the charm of DayZ. But the main thing you have to realize is that the majority of the time, people don't play DayZ because of its amazing gameplay mechanics or thrilling campaign. People play it because every life is a different journey, and how that journey turns out is based on your own decisions. There's a reason why creators such as Frankie on PC, Sour Sweet, Smoke, and many others are one of the main driving reasons why DayZ is getting so much traffic. Every video or stream is a story in and of itself, and people want the opportunity to experience their own story for themselves. Most of the issues I brought up in this video will most likely be fixed eventually. Bohemian Interactive has recently been focusing on fixing many of the game's problems, and with expansions like Namalsk and Livonia and others in the works, I don't believe that DayZ is going to stop expanding just yet. There's a lot I haven't had the chance to expand upon as much as I would like to, like the containment zones or the cannibal clans or the immense crafting system implemented into the game. DayZ has a lot to offer in terms of gameplay, and it's kinda hard to put it all into a structured video. The best thing I can recommend is getting DayZ for yourself and exploring many of the things it has to offer, because even after the almost 900 hours I put into it, I'm still learning new things about it every time I play.